Ever wondered what would happen if the Gotham PD actually arrested the Caped Crusader and threw him in Blackgate Penitentiary? Well, Batman fans might need to sit down for this one, because your favorite brooding billionaire would be facing enough jail time to make the Joker look like a jaywalker. I'm talking centuries behind bars, folks. And no, Alfred can't bail him out of this one. From property destruction that makes Godzilla look careful to straight-up vigilante violence that would have any DA salivating, the Dark Knight's rap sheet is darker than his cowl. So grab your utility belt of legal knowledge, because we're about to calculate just how screwed Bruce Wayne would be if anyone actually enforced the law in Gotham.
Let's start with the most obvious crime on Batman's rap sheet. The Dark Knight doesn't just fight crime, he absolutely demolishes half of Gotham doing it. That highway chase in The Dark Knight where he flipped an entire 18-wheeler like it was a flapjack at IHOP? Yeah, the repair bill for that alone could probably fund Gotham's underfunded school system for the next decade. And that's just one night. This man goes out every single evening and treats the city like his personal destruction derby. Crushed vehicles? We're talking dozens per movie. Destroyed infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and tunnels? Check. Broken windows? All of them, apparently.
I knew the mob wouldn't go down without a fight, but this is different. They've crossed the line.
You crossed the line first, so you squeezed them, you hammered them to the point of desperation. And in their desperation, they turned to a man they didn't fully understand.
Criminals aren't complicated, Alfred. We just need to figure out what he's after.
And let's not forget those poor fruit stand vendors who somehow always end up in the crossfire. Like, why is there always a fruit stand? Does Gotham have a fruit stand union that demands representation in every action sequence?
Gotham's insurance premiums must be more expensive than rent in Manhattan. I'm genuinely shocked the city hasn't just banned vigilantes entirely based on property damage alone. And you'd think a billionaire with access to the world's greatest technology could maybe, I don't know, plan better routes? Hey, Alfred, calculate a path that avoids destroying $47 million in municipal property. Excellent suggestion, Master Bruce. I've been recommending this since 2005, but you seem to enjoy the theatrical route. Maybe invest in some non-lethal stopping methods that don't involve turning Gotham into a war zone every Tuesday. Criminal mischief and destruction of property aren't just slaps on the wrist, folks. Depending on the dollar amount, and given Batman's talent for expensive explosions, we're definitely talking millions. He'd be facing 5 to 10 years in prison. And that's just for property crimes. Batman would also be hit with fines easily reaching $250,000 or more. But hey, when you're a billionaire, that's basically pocket change.
Batman's entire shtick is beating people up. That's literally his superpower, being exceptionally good at punching folks in the face. But here's the thing nobody wants to acknowledge. Assault is still assault, even when you're doing it to bad guys. Like, you can't just go around breaking people's bones and expect a free pass because you're wearing a cool costume. In Batman Begins, he straight up assaulted multiple police officers during that rooftop escape scene. Sure, they were corrupt, but they were still cops. That's assaulting an officer, which is a whole different level of illegal. Then there's the fact that Batman regularly breaks bones like he's collecting them. Arms, legs, ribs. This man leaves a trail of fractures everywhere he goes. Those thugs aren't just getting knocked out and waking up with a headache. They're spending months in physical therapy learning how to walk again.
And let's talk about the traumatic brain injuries. Batman punches people in the head so hard, they don't just pass out, they probably forget their own names. Half of Gotham's criminals likely have permanent brain damage thanks to the Caped Crusader's gentle interrogation techniques. Remember that scene where he dangled a guy off a building by his ankle? Yeah, that's not just intimidation, that's assault with the threat of murder. I didn't kill them is Batman's favorite excuse. But buddy, that's a pretty low bar when half your victims need 6 months of recovery just to remember what day it is.
Here's a wild idea. What if Batman used aggressive therapy instead? Just imagine him sitting criminals down and saying, "Tell me about your childhood trauma, or I'll tell you about mine for 3 hours straight." Trust me, after hearing Bruce Wayne's origin story for the 47th time, those criminals would be reformed immediately. Please, Batman, I'll turn myself in. Just stop talking about your parents. But, nah, Batman chose violence. Multiple counts of aggravated assaults would earn our Dark Knight 15 to 25 years in prison, and that's assuming he didn't permanently disable anyone. Spoiler alert, he definitely did. He'd also be looking at fines upwards of $50,000 per assault charge. Add it all up, and Batman's basically running Gotham's most expensive and illegal orthopedic clinic.
Remember all those iconic scenes where Batman would grab criminals, tie them up, and just hang them from gargoyles like Gothic Christmas ornaments? Or when he'd stuff thugs into the Batmobile and drive them to wherever the hell he felt like? Yeah, turns out that's textbook kidnapping. You can't just grab people off the street and relocate them without their permission. That's literally the definition of abduction, folks. Batman's out here playing taxi driver without anyone's consent, and that's a federal crime. Let's go through the greatest hits, shall we? Hanging mobsters upside down from buildings for interrogation. That's unlawful detainment and kidnapping. Dragging suspects across rooftops like he's kicking them on the world's worst sightseeing tour. Also kidnapping. The entire Scarecrow sequence in Batman Begins, where he basically abducts multiple people and drives them around while they're hallucinating, super illegal. And let's not forget that time he zip-tied a guy to a frickin' searchlight. That man was left dangling in the sky like a human flag. Pretty sure that violates about 17 different laws.
Here's the thing Batman doesn't seem to understand. Even if you eventually drop criminals off at the police station, the middle part where you forcibly relocate them against their will is incredibly illegal. You can't just kidnap someone and then act like it's fine because you had good intentions. That's not how the law works, Bruce. The police can't even do that without proper procedure, and you're not even a cop. Honestly, Batman should have just started a rideshare service. Bat Uber. We'll get you to justice, whether you like it or not. 5 stars, or I'll find you again. Surge pricing applies during Joker attacks. At least then it'd be consensual transportation. But no, Batman chose the kidnapping route. Multiple second-degree kidnapping charges could easily stack up to 20 to 30 years total in prison. That's a lot of time to sit in a cell and think about your poor life choices. He'd also be facing fines of at least $100,000 per kidnapping charge. So basically, Batman's expensive hobby of tying people up and relocating them is going to cost him decades of freedom and enough money to buy a small island.
This crime deserves its own special category because of just how absolutely insane it is. In The Dark Knight, Batman literally flew to Hong Kong, broke into a skyscraper, kidnapped a Chinese businessman named Lau, and flew him back to Gotham strapped to his body like human luggage. This isn't vigilante justice anymore. This is a full-blown international incident that should have had the UN holding emergency sessions. Let's break down everything Batman did wrong here, and trust me, it's a long list. First, he entered a foreign country without any legal permission or authority. That's illegal. Then he broke into private property, a massive corporate building, by smashing through windows and causing chaos. Also illegal. Next, he abducted a foreign national on foreign soil without any warrant, due process, or legal justification whatsoever. Very illegal. Then, and this is the kicker, he flew that man across international borders without going through customs, immigration, or any proper channels. Extremely illegal. And he did all of this while causing massive property damage to the building, because apparently Batman can't do anything without destroying something expensive. See crime number 1 for more details on that.
This is the kind of stunt that starts diplomatic crises and international lawsuits. China would be absolutely losing their minds demanding Batman's extradition. The United Nations would be holding emergency meetings about unauthorized military operations on sovereign soil. Fox News would run 24-hour coverage with graphics like Batgate, American vigilante sparks international crisis. And Gotham's mayor would be sweating bullets trying to explain why they let a guy in a costume commit what's essentially an act of war. Here's a wild thought. Batman could have just sent a strongly worded email. Dear Mr. Lau, we cordially invite you to Gotham for a friendly chat about your illegal activities. Please RSVP by Friday, or Batman will personally RSVP for you. Business casual attire recommended. Zipline not included.
People need to understand murder is murder. You can't just claim self-defense when you're actively hunting criminals with military-grade weapons and killing them. This isn't vigilante justice anymore. This is straight-up premeditated homicide. Batman's not defending himself when he's shooting people from his flying vehicle or running them down with his car. He's executing them without trial, without due process, and without any legal authority whatsoever. That's the literal definition of murder. The humorous alternative here isn't even funny. It's just necessary. Therapy, Bruce. You desperately need therapy, like years of intensive psychological treatment. Alfred should have stopped enabling your nocturnal violence hobby and scheduled you weekly therapy sessions instead of building you more weapons. This level of violence and disregard for human life isn't justice, it's a mental health crisis wearing a cape. Multiple counts of first-degree murder? We're talking life in prison without possibility of parole or potentially the death penalty, depending on the state and the number of victims. Game over, Batman. You played yourself. There's no amount of money, no legal team, and no amount of good publicity that can save you from multiple murder convictions. He'd also be facing wrongful death lawsuits from every victim's family, which could total hundreds of millions of dollars. Bruce Wayne's fortune, his freedom, his legacy, everything would be gone.
All right, let's do some math that would make even Lucius Fox nervous. Time to add up all of Batman's crimes and see just how royally screwed the Dark Knight would be if Gotham actually had a functioning justice system. Property damage, 5 to 10 years in prison, plus fines of $250,000 or more. And that's being conservative, considering Batman destroys millions of dollars in property every single night. Assault and battery, 15 to 25 years in the slammer for multiple counts of aggravated assault. Add another $50,000 in fines per charge, because apparently breaking people's bones is expensive. Kidnapping domestic, 20 to 30 years for all those times he grabbed criminals and relocated them without permission, plus at least $100,000 per kidnapping charge in fines. International kidnapping, 25 to 35 years minimum for that Hong Kong incident alone, plus $250,000 in federal fines. And that's not even counting what China would charge him with. Illegal surveillance, 10 to 20 years in federal prison for wiretapping literally millions of people. The fines here could reach into the billions. $10,000 per violation times every person in Gotham. Even Bruce Wayne would feel that hit. Vehicular crimes, 25 to 40 years for vehicular manslaughter and reckless endangerment charges stacked across multiple incidents. Fines could easily reach millions given the number of people endangered. Murder, life imprisonment without possibility of parole or potentially the death penalty. Multiple counts of first-degree murder plus hundreds of millions in wrongful death lawsuits. The grand total? Somewhere between 100 to 160 years in prison plus a life sentence, because apparently that wasn't enough. Batman would also be facing fines and settlements totaling well over $2.5 billion. That's billion with a B. Justice isn't blind in Gotham. It's just too terrified, corrupt, and overwhelmed to look. And that's the only reason Batman gets away with being the world's most successful criminal while calling himself a hero. And let's not forget the fines. Property damage alone could cost $500 million plus. Good thing Bruce Wayne is a billionaire, because he'd need every penny for bail, lawyers, and settling wrongful death lawsuits. Want to see how other superheroes would fare in court? Let me know who to cover next. Spider-Man? Iron Man? The entire Justice League? Drop your suggestions below.